Welcome everyone to the Transformation Summit. Together we are wise women rising for embodied change. I'm Alison Palmer, I'm your host, and I'm thrilled today to be speaking with Reverend Dr. Cari Jackson. Now, she has got such an accomplished biography. She's done some just utterly amazing things and still doing them. So please read it. It is below here and it is full of all the juiciness that she's bringing to share with the world. And to introduce her just very quickly to you, she is an emotional intuitive, a spiritual midwife, and a social healer. She is the developer of Taking Back My Life. She is the president of Excellent Way Consulting. Many more things, and the author of 5 books. I mean, you can see why I can't say it all here. And welcome, Cari.
Thank you so very much, Alison, for inviting me to share and be a part of Transformation Summit. It is indeed an honor for me.
Yeah, I'm really pleased you're here, and I feel very honored to welcome you here today to discuss turning triggers into triumphs. And I know that we've spoken about this, you and I, about being triggered.
Yes.
And just to share, just to, put it into context, we are all about trying to find our contribution to make to co-creating some different experience in the world,
Yes.
Transformation in the world. And as we do that, we are going to be triggered. And so discussing this issue and learning how we can navigate this is really, really critical. So I wanted to start by asking you, we were talking before and you were, sharing how you've come to look upon this past time that we've been living through and still living through now, and all of the things that have been going on. And I wondered if that's a really good place for us just to start to really revisit how this has been impacting people.
Yes, that's an excellent place to start. But I'm going to back up from that. I want to define what triggers means for me so that as we're going through the conversation, folks will have a framework for this. So a trigger, talking about emotional triggers, that is when there's an intense emotional reaction to a person, a situation, and it is an immediate reaction. Some triggers come slow burn, but most triggers come like that very, very quickly. And the other thing about triggers is that often we might be unaware or not fully aware of what's going on. We can feel the intensity of our emotional reaction, but not be quite certain about why. And third thing, not be quite certain how to handle it, how to manage it in that moment. And so that's my definition of trigger.
Brilliant.
So the times that we're living in right now, we're dealing with the environmental crisis, where some people say it's a crisis and other people say there's nothing wrong. We're living in the midst of a medical health pandemic, also where some people recognize we're in a pandemic and some people say there's nothing wrong. Here in the US, we're living in a time when the political tensions are greater than since, well, I'd say even superseding the 1960s, that were very, very, very much an emotional and political powder keg. But I think what's happening now is even greater than that, because it is involving more people in the US, and we're in the context of the other two things that I mentioned, the environmental and the COVID, and a third thing that is largely brought on by COVID, and that is the economic instability that so many people are happening. And so I call this a crucible of anxiety and trauma. And we're all in this crucible. Some of us even closer to the heat, to the flame than others of us, varying by which country we're in, varying by our socioeconomic status, varying by other factors that might be happening in our lives, but we're all in the crucible. So
yeah, we really are. And as you and I were saying before, it's a really intense time. And when we look forward, as we used to doing, pre all of this, we look forward with some expecting to sort of plan our way out of it. And we know that we can't, because what we've learned is that things are changing all the time. So, this is going to obviously trigger a lot of people, even when we're trying to, like all the people in this summit, and a lot of people are trying to come from a place of awareness and love, and yet we're still triggered. So what's going on there?
So one of the things that's going on is we don't stop being human because we are intentionally aware, self-aware, and we don't stop being human. And I think one of the things that happens for many of us, because we do seek to be living in self-awareness and do seek to live from a place of love, very easily hubris can set in, and we can begin believing, I don't have this issue or this challenge or this problem anymore, because we forget we never stop being human. It's part of our humanity to have emotional reaction to things. What the awareness and love can do is help us be able to do two things. One, to say, oh, these are the kinds of situations that are likely to trigger me, based on what I know about me. That's why the self-awareness is so important. These are the kinds of things that are likely to trigger me. And what the love can do is I don't have to judge myself about the things that trigger me. And the love can also say, these are the kinds of people and circumstances that are likely to trigger me. And I don't have to be mad at them either. I can stay in love. And how I do that is really the incredible work that I believe you and I can at least help people to begin to touch on in this conversation. But we're human. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, because we like to think we're working on ourselves so much that somehow we forget that it's okay that we actually are human. And I don't know about you, but in these times, I wanted to share two things actually. One was, and I was trying to think, when did I do this? And it might just have been before the COVID really started up, or just as it was starting up. But I was asked, I was actually in a program, in a mastermind, and the question was, what triggers you? And I'd never been asked that question before. And so when I just thought about it, I just thought, everything triggers me. Oh my goodness. I am such a reactive person. And I realized at that point that I hadn't had any awareness about the extent to which I was triggered on a daily basis. And I had a whole load of narratives going on to justify this outrage that I felt, this intense emotion. So that was a real wake-up call for me, just realizing, how it had got out of control for me without my awareness. And then the second thing was, during this turbulent time, I don't know if this has been happening for you, but I have had friendships, family relationships, things just show up in a in in a more intense way, where the difference of values, the difference of perspectives has been amplified, and I have not dealt with it well.
I really appreciate both parts of what you're speaking about, the values, and I want to focus on competing values, but also how it shows up in relationships that we might not have expected, might not have anticipated those differences to show up. Most of us align ourselves with people with whom we feel there's some simpatico, some shared sense of values. What we don't discern is, well, if there's a situation where there's competing values, how's this person gonna go and how am I gonna go? Because the reality is life is filled with competing values and so many more competing values when we're in this crucible of anxiety and trauma. And so we can value something that's love. You know, love is a very high value I have. But I also have a very high value for integrity. I have a high value for community. I have a high value for personal freedom. You know, all of those are things that Cari values very highly. I don't usually think about, well, what kind of situation might there come in my life where I can only choose one of those values? And that the one I choose might compete with something else that's really, really important. Now, loyalty, let me say this, is not a really high value for me, but let's say it is for someone. So here we are in this time of COVID-19, where loyalty has been a value that has been really pressed hard for many people, because in families, in friend communities, there are some who say, I believe in vaccination. And then there's others who say, I don't believe in vaccination and I'm not going to wear a mask. So how do you then, with the values that you have, maybe community is a really high value, and caring for the larger society is a really high value, and loyalty is a high value. So now we have this competing set of values. I want to be loyal to this person whom I love, whom I adore. But I also have this incredible calling from my value for honoring all humanity. How do I align those? And that has happened, I've seen, in family after family after family, in friend community after community. And so many people have been hard pressed to know what to do and have felt, well, is there something wrong with me? No, nothing wrong. It's just a situation of competing values. And so the opportunity then to learn more about what is most important to us, not what are the set of things that are very important, but what's most important to us. And for some people, their family is more important than the broader society. And for some people, themselves, their individual selves, are more important than their family. And everybody has to see and be honest and clear for themselves about that. But I want to interject this. Our beloved teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, made his transition this year. And I honor his life so very, very much. But there's something that Thich Nhat Hanh said, and I'm going to just do some portions of this quote from him, one of my favorite. And he said, when you plant lettuce, if it does not grow well, you don't blame the lettuce. you look for the reasons it's not doing well. And so I think in these times that we are living in this crucible, we're all lettuce, if you will. We didn't plant each other, but we are cohabitating in this space. And yes, we do plant some things in one another. And so Thich Nhat Hanh asked the question, or invites us to ask the question, does the lettuce need more sunlight? Does it need more water or less water? Does it need more fertilizer? What are the things, the conditions that might help that lettuce grow well? Because we're all in this crucible together and we're all being impacted in one way or to one degree or other, sometimes in our humanity, it's hard to ask the question, so what does this person need to help them flourish and to help them thrive? More often, we get triggered and we're not thinking about, well, how can I support this person? We're like, what, are you crazy? Do you really believe that? What is wrong with you? And so just taking the time to breathe, I think, is absolutely essential before we speak. Because, as we know, once it is spoken, we cannot retrieve our words. And once the energy, and because it's not just our words, but also once the energy that comes with that trigger emotion, once it goes out there, it cannot be retrieved. And so just taking time to breathe, to get more clarity about what we are feeling, what we are thinking, what our competing values are. How does the relationship with this person align with the values that we have? And I believe that in the course of this, there will be realignment of relationships, and that's okay. It's hard. And I want to tell you, in my own life, I'm the only girl with 3 brothers. I'm the youngest. I always valued my friendships. They were like family for me. And loved my brothers, but they were not my friends. So my friends, they were family. Always had the belief, the narrative, once a friend, forever a friend, no change in the dynamics of the relationship. That was a really important value that I held in my life, probably until my 50s. And then I said, but my well-being, my sense of peace, my freedom, those are things that I realized I valued even more. And so then I had to realign my narrative. So this is the narrative. What's really been the source of the narrative, and does it still serve me well? And so that's a really important piece, I think, for everyone to consider. Because a lot of the narratives that we developed in the first 10 years of our lives. We might have put some nips and tucks on some of them over the years, but to really look at them anew and ask the question, does this narrative serve me well? Does it support me in having the values that guide my life to the expansiveness and the transformational elements I want for my life? And some of those old narratives simply do not do that. And it's important to update those narratives.
So brilliant, because everything that you've said is just so brilliant. And so much came up as you were talking. One of the things that came up for me that I can hold on to remember is about the issue of finding our voice and not being silenced in that process where we are triggered, because to dishonor the truth of who we are in that
Yes.
moment doesn't seem to me to be a productive way to be, for anybody. And many, many, many of us have been trained socially, culturally, whatever, to
Yes.
actually habitually silence ourselves anyway. And now we've got this increased intensity and the propensity for being triggered and having that emotional happen. So we've got that whole thing coming up time and time again for us. And as you so rightly said, it doesn't do anybody any good either when we just splurge into, I loved how you said it about putting that energy out into the world, because we can't take it back. Once it's out, it's out. And I'll give you an example from my own life. Sitting, just squashing down my anger that was rising in a conversation, and just thinking, it's all right, it will end, it will end, it will end. And the conversation getting to a point where I boiled over, because I didn't really have any, I hadn't consciously thought about, well, what skills can I bring to this kind of situation, so that in the moment we can actually make a different choice that honors ourselves, isn't about silencing ourselves, but also isn't about putting out the negative energy or the detrimental energy. But also, I'm not quite sure, how we deal with that other person there. We can bring compassion and we can bring love. But I'm thinking, because you were talking about this, and I was thinking, yeah, and still, what goes on for me is I can do that as long as I think that they're coming around to thinking what I think in the end.
I really appreciate that very last piece that you said. And I would go back to that same quote, that passage from Thich Nhat Hanh,
Yeah.
because he talks about not only not blaming people, but really focusing on understanding.
Mm.
Most of us, you talked about socialization, most of us have been socialized to work to get other people to think the same way we're thinking.
Mm.
If we're really aligned with each other, then you should think the same way I think.
Yeah.
And most of us really do not know how to walk with, to journey with people who might have some different values or who might have overlapping values. That's the thing. There might be overlapping values, but when there's a situation where the competing values happen, the overlap of values might not be what sustains you. But if the other person chooses this value over value A, you have an overlap with value B, and then you choose value C. And it looks like you say, how did we ever have alignment? Well, it was in value B, and there might be some others too, but A and C are not aligned. And so if we can understand what might be going on for the other person and not seek to get them to pick value C in order for us to stay in love. Love is not about, do you agree with everything that is important to me? That is a love, but it is not unconditional love. Learning how to love ourselves and others unconditionally, I think, is the incredible work, especially that this time that we're in reveals for us. We are living in a time right now where so much of what people are thinking and feeling and so much of their socialization is on steroids. In calmer times, some things we might notice, but we say, oh, that's just so-and-so, But because things are on steroids, that heightened level of intensity, So maybe someone has been a conspiracy theorist, and I think most of us are in some way or other. It depends on which conspiracies we're more likely to think of and align ourselves with, or think that are true or right. Mm. And so that's one of the other things I spoke earlier about hubris. Sometimes it is easy to think, oh, those people or that person, they're given to conspiracies, and we don't honor the truth that we might too. It's just a different set of conspiracies. And in our worldview, those conspiracies are truth. But to recognize that the conspiracies that others might align themselves with from their worldview, those are truth. And to be able to honor that, I think, is really, really important. So saying, okay, we share in this incredible, complex, beautiful thing called humanity. We share in that. And we have reactions and reasoning and arguments and persuasion and love and on and on and on. We share in all of those things. What they look like expresses differently. But we're sharing in a lot of those same common things. And if we can bring ourselves to, so what is it? What are the hopes and the longings that we share across individuals, across communities, across nations? What do we share? And how might we honor what we share? And the piece that you were saying about the socialization. So we share a lot of things, but because of socialization, because of life experience, we express those things in different ways. And that's where the rub happens. We might say, oh yeah, okay, we do share that, but the way you express it just doesn't align for me. It doesn't work for me. It's problematic for me. And if we're only able to get back to, so what is underneath what the other person expresses and what's underneath what I'm expressing, to honor that as well. And if I've been socialized not to bring my voice, and someone else has been socialized to always bring their voice, often in a way that doesn't make room for my voice, how do I honor both of those? One, to keep asking the question, okay, I'm pissed off in this situation. I hope you don't mind me using that language, but I am pissed off. And what is this person inviting me to learn about myself? What are they inviting me to learn about myself? So often we skip over that question and focus on the other person about what we see as problematic in their lives. But there's always the invitation. What is there for me to learn about myself? And if I've been socialized not to bring my voice, perhaps I have been looking to other people to create space for me to bring my voice. And this situation is inviting me to learn how to use my own voice, not because somebody's creating the space for it, but it's in there not creating the space for my voice that I really get to claim the power and the authenticity and the value of my own voice. Because when I can do it in that context, then I got it. I got it.
Wow.
I know I covered a million things, so I hope you can follow me.
Yeah, that was just so brilliant. I mean, talk about reframing a really difficult situation and just in a completely, new way to me, actually, by asking that, not just asking the question, what can I learn in this situation, but actually seeing it as it's actually okay to say how you feel, and we can do that with a degree of love for ourselves and what do I want to say? Love for the other person, even when we completely do not agree with that particular value at that particular moment. And what I was thinking as you were talking was this thing about if we are serious about wanting to contribute to transformation in the world, we can't avoid the people who trigger us in situations, because in the end we'd end up just all isolated individuals.
Yes. In a bubble.
Yes. And we can't say, you shut up. Like I would love to say to people, you shut up, you've got this all totally wrong, and just get wise and see how I see things, and then
Yes.
be hunky-dory. And of course that's the real crux of the problem in the world, is that that's what people do. And so we're only looking at things or allowing things from a dominant paradigm. And
yes
yeah, and so being able to just allow that there's going to be lots of different competing views. I think how you put that was so good, and that we have an opportunity in all of those to actually approach it in a very different way than being triggered.
I want to share a short story with you. So again, steroids. So much of what's happening is on steroids. In 2020, after yet another Black man was killed at the hands of police, in the midst of all of the racial protests and unrest, something happened for me that totally surprised me, and it was an incredible learning opportunity. Now, here I am. I've been working for years and years and years on self-awareness and all of that. And so why it's important to recognize that also in our humanity is an element of hubris is to start thinking, I completely know myself, because we never do. There's always something else to learn. So I learned something really powerful about myself in the midst of this. I was walking down the street, just going for a walk. I live in a community that is about 95% white. I live here because it's so amazingly, incredibly beautiful. And so we chose to live where we live because of the beauty, not because of the population demographics. So I'm walking down the street, and the thought came to me, a white supremacist is going to see me walking down the street, and this person or they will shoot me. I will die, and no one will know who shot me. So when the thought came, I was like, whoa, because the fervor of what was happening, everything on steroids. I've lived my life with white supremacy. I've lived my life with class supremacy and Christian supremacy, and all of gender supremacy. But here it was in this moment on steroids. I was shocked that the degree of fear that I had was that intense. I didn't know. I cannot tell you the number of situations throughout my life where I have physically been unsafe, because of racism, sexism, on and on and on, physically unsafe. But here I'm just walking down, there's no one near me, and the degree of unsafety that I felt was so intense, till what I chose to do was keep walking until I walked out of the fear. So I walked a long time, but I kept walking because I said, I do not have control over what anyone else does to me. I had to move my sense of safety from the external to the internal. I don't have control out here. And so often what we derive our sense of safety from is how aligned other people's thinking is with our own. We derive our safety from, are other people going to protect me if things don't seem to go well? On and on and on. This is a moment in this crucible of anxiety and trauma for us to identify the ways in which we've given our sense of safety over to other people and bring it where it matters most. We do not have control over what other people do or don't do, whether they become vaccinated, whether they wear masks, whether they vote for the political party that we think is the best option in the moment, or any of those things. We don't have control over this. Mm. And so to recognize, how do I bring my sense of safety, relocate it where it matters most? And so how is this person who's pissing me off, or this political situation, or whatever it might be, how are they inviting me to see some things about myself, either that I haven't seen or I still need to do some more work with? Because if we really want to be agents of transformation, that's the work internally that I think is really essential. Because as you said, Alison, when we are interacting with people, and we're called to do that if we really want to be agents of change and transformation, if we're interacting with people whose beliefs are not aligned with ours, or whose core values are not aligned with ours, or on and on and on, making sure that our sense of safety is internal, is deeply rooted internally, so that as we interact with them, we're not reacting to them from a place of, I don't feel safe. But we can stay rooted in love. We can stay rooted in seeking to understand where this person or these groups might be coming from. We can stay rooted in the absolute incredible beauty of our shared humanity. And when we stay located in that place, OMG, it really is staying out of that place of blame. It is staying out of that anger and out of the fear, recognizing that they will come because we're human. They never go away, but not to live there.
Mm. Mm. Wow. Just, I'm pretty much blown away with this. I just think, amazing. Everything that you shared are so powerful, so just real. We're talking about wise women rising. Well, you have truly brought wisdom here today, really shown us different ways of approaching what could be incredibly volatile or suppressing situations. So, just I'm just, I can see, I'm lost for words. I really think it's just been fantastic and brilliant. So I'm just also noticing the time really, and I know we could talk about this a lot more because it's just, potent and really so relevant and urgent. It's another thing that's become
Yes,
more
yes.
intense and urgent. So people will definitely want to do that. So, how do they find out more about you? And I know you've got some things to share with people. So could you speak a little bit to those?
Yes, indeed. Find me on my website, drcarijackson.com, and that's drcarijackson.com, drcarijackson.com. I'm excited to be offering some amazing programs that we're doing this year. One is called Expanding Life in Loss. We know so many people have experienced losses of a variety of sorts. So that's deaths of loved ones, the endings of relationships, health challenges, job challenge, on and on, things that have been anchors for us, been those emotional anchors in our lives. Many people have experienced the loss of those. And so we have a powerful program that deals with that. But I call it not just grief support, it is grief support and life empowerment, because expanding life in loss is about how do you take and this is something Oprah Winfrey said, wounds into wisdom. So how do you take what has happened in the midst of your loss and use it for something that brings some major insight for you, that you're then able to expand and grow in the ways you live your life. So expanding life in loss. So look for that one. Another one I'm very excited about is Taking Back My Life. That is specifically for survivors of sexual assault. As one myself, I know I spent so many years not living in my full power, not living in my true authenticity, trying to make myself small so I would be safe, all of those kinds of things. So that when I say small, make my footprint in the world small, so I would feel safe. I've had to do a lot of work to take back my own life. And so I developed this program specifically to help individuals who've experienced sexual assault and who know they're not living their fullest lives. And it's a powerful program that offers both online self-paced activities people can be involved in and small group experiences. It's an absolutely powerful program. And it was something I had been doing with groups of individuals, hundreds of folks over the last 20 years. And a few years ago, Spirit told me this needs to be in an online format. And so I was told that in 2019 before all of the COVID stuff happened. And so I think even more people will be amenable to participating in this kind of way. But those are two major things I'm excited about. And from time to time, I offer free workshops. They're 1 hour sessions. Some are in the same room and some are virtual, and all of that's listed on the website. And I do a monthly newsletter that I encourage people to sign up for. It's called Imagine! Imagine! And really helping people get free and imagine themselves more full, more free. And we share a lot of personal stories of individuals who have done exactly that in their own lives. And so a bunch of other stuff, but I'm excited to be in this season of my life. I turned 65 a couple of months ago. I'm having so much delight because I'm living my fullest life, my fullest self. And I really am committed to helping other people to do the same for themselves.
Beautiful. Wow, everybody, the links are below here. So if this is speaking to you, go to those links right now. Just amazing opportunities there for you. Cari, this has been brilliant, as I've said, speaking with you and just having this conversation and exploring the ways that you have found really help us to work through these difficult times on this specific issue. Just brilliant, totally brilliant. So massive thank you to you for coming and sharing on the Transformation Summit. Thank you.
And we are offering a free experience with expanding life and loss. So if there's someone who would really, who recognizes this is an important time for you, not just to manage your grieving, but for you to grow from the experience of loss, there is an opportunity for you to have a free experience of that. And we welcome that very much.
Beautiful, beautiful. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a very powerful session. If you've got anything that you'd like to share with us that's come up for you during this, please do, because we love to hear from you. You can just reply to any of the summit emails, say it's in relation to Cari's session, and anything you share with me, I'll pass on to her so she gets that information as well. And that way, you know, we stay connected and keep the energy moving, and you know, we co-create together.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So everyone, thank you so much. And my final thank you is to you, Cari. Thank you.
Alison, thank you so very much for this conversation and for the opportunity. Blessings to you in all that you do, and blessings to each of you who participate in this summit.